Hey everyone, this is UZworm. Since it recently came out of beta, I figured I should probably do a review of Siralim 3. I'm doing so because you might remember that a while back I did a stream of Siralim 2 and I absolutely lambasted it. I wanted so much to like the game, but there was just so much keeping it back that I just kind of let it be with a pretty bad taste in my mouth. When Siralim 3 came onto Steam, I did a stream of that as well, and in the early game it just seemed to kind of be a redone version of 2, and I was understandably rather upset at this, and at the end of the stream I kind of dismissed it and moved on pretty fast. After waiting for a few updates and playing for a few hours, I can say that my initial reaction was hasty. It turns out that the game is a lot better than what I had originally thought. And so I figured I should do just a review of everything good, everything bad, everything going on with this game, since I've gotten the full picture of it now. The story of the game is just as bare bones as the last game was. You're the king or queen of Nex, a kingdom, and once again, using the word kingdom very loosely, the entire place is just one giant room. That's apparently a rival or something of Siralim's. Siralim is attacking Nex for some reason, and you are tasked with going out into the world via your teleportation shrine, saving the realms of the gods from the previous game, and collecting monsters to fight the evil forces off with. There's something sort of resembling a twist as the plot moves forward, but I won't spoil what little plot there is. It's worth noting that the creator of the game did mean to make the plot as bare bones as possible, so the gameplay and collection aspects of the game could be focused on, but it's a little unfortunate that the paper-thin storyline presented is all we get, alongside with some painfully bad writing. I remember Torin, the totem god that cursed all the time, and he was easily the best character in Siralim 2. Apparently the dev found out he was the favorite character because he put him just front and center now, just screaming about you being a fucking moron for far more screen time than he deserves. Just every single game, or every attempt that the game makes at being funny or self-aware is just, it's at best forgettable and at worst just worthy of an eye roll so hard that they just fall back through your neck. Thankfully, like I said, you can ignore the writing and the plot and everything. It's more about the gameplay in the end. The base game is essentially the same as it was in Siralim 2. You go through teleportation shrines to randomly generated worlds, click on things to destroy them, collect minerals, runes, items, and artifacts, and fight gangs of monsters. The capture mechanic is the same as well, using extraction to grab the soul out of a monster so that you can add one to your party after you leave the realm. Each monster has its own stats and a special trait specific to its species. The battling system also remains the same, with the option to either fight or cast a spell, choose a monster to provoke all enemy attacks to it, or use an extraction move on an enemy. Macros are also available in this game now. After each battle, you regain all health and MP, which remains a nice touch in a game that can often feature longer, more even matched battles at the higher levels. You, alongside your monsters, gain experience points. Their experience points boost their stats, as you expect, while you're leveling up. Does a couple things. It's really not as important when you're leveling up as it is when they are. You can gain favor with the gods by doing works for them in their realms, or just by paying them material tributes, and after each couple of realms you face a boss that pushes the game further along, and gives you access to more areas of your kingdom, like the stable for breeding, the blacksmith for artifact making and enhancing, etc. There's plenty about the game that is improved over its predecessor, thankfully. Just aesthetically, the graphics have a fresh coat of paint on them. It looks a lot less, I used to say Siralim 2 looked like a generic RPG Maker 2 game, and it did. But this looks a lot better, and the sprites for the monsters themselves are still very good. The most striking change, and the most important in my opinion, is the breeding system. In Siralim 2, the breeding system infuriated me, because it seemed like it actively punished you for wanting to breed. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a big Dragon Warrior Monsters guy, and that's the reason why I got into Siralim 2 in the first place. And that's in no small part due to the fact that the breeding in Dragon Warrior Monsters is amazing and varied, and probably the best part of that game. In Siralim 2, you were given little to no knowledge of what you were going to get from any given breeding, pairing, unless you'd specifically picked up the rune with the pairing that you wanted on it. It also would, on occasion, just make the new monster not the same type as the pedigree, which was really awful since spell gems can only be put on the same type of monster as the pedigree. And it forced you to get thousands of a specific type of experience point when you were trying to hatch an egg after the first couple hatches. So it could take up to half an hour to hatch one egg while you were grinding battles to do so, or trying to get shard items to get that experience up quicker, during which time you basically had one empty monster spot while you were waiting for your new baby monster to show up. It was a horrible, frustrating waste of time. And if I was going to pick one thing that made me more upset with Siralim 2 than anything, it was absolutely that. Thankfully, Siralim 3 has changed that entire thing up. Eggs are now hatched with no need for extracurricular activities, so it's more like it was in Dragon Warrior Monsters. You also get a hint now if you're breeding a pairing that you'd never seen before, or one that you don't know the combo for, but you have seen the monster before with. Just those steps alone take the breeding system back from being awful, and quite frankly, I'd say the breeding changes alone make the game worlds better and immensely more playable than its prequel. Some other small quality of life and other things have been put into the game. You have the ability now to get enhancements onto spell gems, so that their abilities and powers can be changed or boosted for a higher MP cost. And there's a few other interesting additions, like there's in-game usable points gained by getting the achievements, the thousands of possible achievements in the game. I think I've gotten like 280 of them out of about 1100, and I've played for 30 hours, so yeah, plenty of points speaking in that way. And also deity points from gods, which every time that you give a god enough favor, they give you deity points, which you can use to boost things permanently on your end, like boosting your monster's health automatically, or MP automatically, or giving them automatic resistance to one thing or another, or automatically giving them a trait, depending on what kind of mage you pick at the start of the game. There's also a couple new things like the battle arena that's been added, where you get to pick a team of 6 monsters from a pre-selected bunch and then see if you can take your team to victory, and the tavern brawl, where you take on real teams from other Siralim 3 players. Compared to the last game, where the only real side distractions were a few mini games that worked on like Adobe Flash looking sliders, it feels a lot more complete. And it's worth noting the soundtrack's pretty good. It's very ambient and it fits the atmosphere the game provides really nicely, and I've got a few tracks playing in the back here. Now to the problems of the game, most of which actually carried over from Siralim 2. Like in the last game, my biggest criticism outside of the breeding is I still despise the magic system. A monster in Siralim starts with a set amount of MP at birth, and that number never changes. It never naturally goes up. You can use your character perks to give your monsters extra MP automatically, and you can craft like artifacts to give them MP up traits, but monsters never gain any more on their own. It's immensely frustrating. It feels like the game is trying to punish you for wanting to use magic, and I was a sorcery type character, so I had a lot of monsters that had very good abilities to use magic, but just not enough MP to do so. I have 28 extra MP on each monster due to my perks on my character, and MP up artifacts on all of them, and I'll still run out of MP by the 3rd or 4th turn of each fight, because spells cost way more than you really have available to you, especially if you're using spell gem enhancements, which bump each spell's use up by 3, 4, 5 MP. I mean, if it could just be like, maybe not even 1 MP per level, because you level up really fast in this game, but like 1 MP every 5 levels, 1 MP every 10 levels. Just some way to boost MP naturally for a monster. Even if it was just by type, it would have improved the game immensely, and it's... I don't know, that was a huge criticism in the first game. It's still one in this game. It just makes using magic very, very unfortunate in this one. You kind of have to always have on hand a monster or two that has super powerful physical attacks, because if you just want to use magic, you're running the risk of running into a fight where they don't all die in 4 turns, so you're basically just screwed then, because your monsters don't have any attack power. The game's reliance on traits is still frustrating as well. Each monster has its own ability or trait, and it essentially defines the monster over anything else. The problem is a lot of the monster's abilities just aren't very good, and a lot of the other ones are like either really good or game-changing. The skeleton mortarman that you see on my team in the footage, he has the ability Scatter Shot, which takes 30% of the damage he deals on every hit and hits every other enemy with it. That is insanely useful if you can get him to a high level of damage or give him multi-hit capabilities. But if you wanted to breed him, there's a chance you'd end up with a new monster that has a trait that isn't as good. Even if the monster's better overall, losing the trait like that can make you a lot less willing to do breeding, just in case you lose the ability that had been like making battles so much easier for you before. It makes it a lot harder to go through the game using monsters that you like instead of using monsters that you feel you need to use, that's the thing I love about Dragon Warrior monsters so much. If you're willing to put the breeding effort in, you can use any team you want in Dragon Warrior monsters. This is more like in Pokemon, where if your favorite Pokemon is Love Disc, you can have a Love Disc. You're just not going to get too far with your Love Disc because it's just by nature not as good or not as useful as a lot of other monsters that you could have on your team. Like, if you want to use a Wasp monster because you like the Wasp monster, but the Wasp monster's only ability helps other Wasp monsters, then you're basically just using up a slot on your team for a Wasp monster that could only help other monsters that aren't on your team. Instead of having another monster that could have an ability that maybe boosts all your spell gem abilities, or puts every enemy to sleep at the start of a battle, or automatically hits every enemy with a small attack at the start of every battle, something like that. And I know this is also a minor complaint, and it was improved a bit this type around, but it is still unfortunate to me that every monster in the game is still just one of like a base 60, 75 sprites with a recolor of some sort slapped on top of it. But again, that has improved since Siralim 2. It's just, it was just something that I was hoping seeing taken a little farther in Siralim 3 than it was. So that's all I really have to say about the game, good or bad. It's kind of hard to put a score on something like this, because it's a very niche game. If you aren't the type of person who likes Monster Collection RPGs, this isn't going to be the game that converts you into liking Monster Collection RPGs. In general, though, I'd say if it's something that interests you at all, it's probably worth a shot. Right now, the game's $15 on Steam, which is about what I'd say the max price point for it should be. And it is around the holidays right now, so if you might see it on Steam, on a Steam sale, I'd say pick it up. If you liked Siralim 2, you'll probably love Siralim 3. If you were iffy on the game, though, like I was, I would say give it a shot. You might enjoy it quite a bit. I've gotten, as of right now, about 32 hours out of it, and I'll probably add another 5, 6, 7 before I stop playing it in total, maybe even more. So I would say it was worth the money. If you're looking for like a fun Dragon Warrior monster style game to bring back the like Monster Collectathon nostalgia, or like a game to just spend a few hours playing just to get away from everything without a whole lot of thought to it, I know I love games like that. You could do a lot worse than Siralim 3 for those. So thanks everyone for listening to this. I know this is not my usual style of video, but I felt Siralim 3 deserved a bit better than I'd first given it. I am UZworm, thank you for listening, and have a good one.